Have you ever imagined that darkness might be infiltrated within the church itself, using God's name to imprison? Now, see what she discovered on the other side of life. Helena, what did Jesus show you about the churches? What did you see that almost no one has the courage to say? My name is Helena. I'm 47 years old, and before anything else, I want to ask you something very simple. Just listen to me until the end, okay? Because look, if you've ever knelt down crying, fasted waiting for a miracle, or felt that even doing everything right, your life was stuck, then maybe this story is exactly what you needed to hear today. I'm not here to preach or push any belief on you. I just want to share something that happened to me. Something so strong, so out of the ordinary, that even today I still wonder if I dreamed it. But I know I didn't dream it, because that day, I died. Just like that. And what came after that? It changed everything for me. Truly. Since I was little, faith has always been part of my life. I was born into a very traditional Christian home. My mother took me to church like taking a child to school. It was routine. It was sacred. And I grew up believing in that idea. If I am faithful, God will take care of everything. And I took it seriously. I fasted, I campaigned, I tithed even when the electricity bill was about to be cut off. I was that person who was always there, helping in the service, singing in the worship, praying for everyone. How many times did I enter the church with a broken heart? But I put a smile on my face, just because I was taught that strong believers don't complain. They just trust. But over time, everything became heavy. And it seemed that the more I tried, the more life squeezed me. You know that feeling of living on a treadmill, running, but not getting anywhere. The salary barely covered the basic. The fridge was always empty. And when I thought there would be some change left, some unforeseen event would come. A flat tire, a child with a fever, overdue rent. It was like always living 2 steps behind. But I remained firm because they always said, "The blessing is coming. Just wait a little longer." And I waited, not for bargaining, but because my heart was sincere. I believed, waking up at 5 in the morning to pray, working hard all day, taking care of the house, my 2 children, washing, ironing, cooking, and still found strength to go to the service at night, with a praise on my lips and tiredness in my body. But inside, I was at my limit. It wasn't just physical. It was a tiredness in the soul, a silent sadness. I looked at my life and asked myself, God, what am I doing wrong? Because I saw so many people far from God prospering. Oh, and there I was, faithful, praying, fighting, and nothing changed. But I didn't say anything, because I was taught that complaining was a lack of faith. So I just cried softly into the pillow and said, Lord, help me. Show me where I'm going wrong. And the answer never came. Then came that Sunday. I was already exhausted. It had been days, but I decided to go to church anyway. It was the end of a 21-day fasting campaign. I had given myself body and soul, believing that, in that service, something was going to happen. It was my last hope. I remember arriving and sitting way in the back. I was weak, exhausted, but firm. When the worship started, I raised my hands, sang with everything I had left. But in the middle of the song, I felt a strange dizziness. I tried to lean on the bench to disguise it, but it was useless. In seconds, everything went dark, a blackout. The last thing I heard was someone shouting. She fainted. After that, total silence. I always thought dying was like turning off the light. A silence, an end, but it wasn't like that at all. After that blackout in the service, I saw myself standing. And the craziest thing, I was looking at myself, lying on the church floor. It was as if I had separated from my body. I saw everything happening there. People running, some crying, a brother kneeling beside me, praying loudly, the pastor trying to stay calm while calling for help. It was chaos, but I was at peace, a peace that is indescribable. All the weight I had been carrying for years seemed to have evaporated. There was no more pain, no fear, just immense relief, as if I had finally let go of an invisible burden that was crushing me inside. That's when it hit me. I had died, but instead of despair, there came a serenity so deep, so different from anything I had ever felt, that the only thing I could do was smile. A calm, grateful smile. I thought, so this is it? Is this where it all ends? Only it didn't end. Suddenly I started to be taken. I wasn't walking, I wasn't flying, but floating, as if a force was gently pulling me upwards. And everything was becoming distant. The temple, the people, the screams. I was entering a place where time or space couldn't be measured. I just know it was full of light, but not an ordinary light. It was a living light. It didn't hurt the eyes. On the contrary, it seemed to embrace. And along with this light came a feeling so strong. A love that enveloped me in a way I had never felt before. A love that demanded nothing, that didn't charge, just loved. At that moment, the only thing that came to my mind was, I'm going home. That was it. The feeling was of finally returning to the place I came from. As if everything before was just a passage. As I let myself be taken, the light began to change. It started to take shape, to turn into someone. It was as if it itself transformed into a presence. And then my eyes saw. It was him, Jesus. But not the Jesus from the images, nor from the plays. It was real, alive, and with a look that pierced everything I was. Not just what I showed to the world, but what was hidden, what I couldn't even explain. He just looked at me at first without saying a word. But in that look, there was everything. Love, truth, mercy, and a gentle sadness, like someone who had seen all my hidden tears, and still loved me. I felt my heart race, and at the same time, such great peace, as if he was telling me with his eyes, I know you completely. And I'm here. Then he spoke. Just one word. Helena. But it was as if the whole sky said my name together. Duel. At that moment, I understood. He had always been with me, even on the days I thought I was praying alone. Even on the days I cried, thinking he had forgotten me. After that, Jesus looked at me with such sweet firmness, then full of compassion that I didn't know if I wanted to cry or hide. And then he said, Helena, you served me sincerely, but you were deceived by a system that uses my name but doesn't have my heart. That was a punch. I was left without ground. I always thought I was doing everything right. That fasting, going to the mountain, giving what I didn't have, was what God wanted from me. But there, in his presence, it was as if my eyes finally saw the truth. You chased after blessings but never stopped to sit with me. Oi, he continued. They taught you that the more you suffer, the holier you are. But that didn't come from me. That came from the enemy, who wants to see my people tired, blaming themselves for wanting to live with dignity. At that moment, it was as if a movie played in my head. I remembered how many times I stopped buying something basic to fulfill a purpose, how many times I swallowed my tears not to seem weak, and all thinking I was pleasing God. Jesus continued with a voice full of truth. Ah, the problem wasn't your faith. It was where they placed it. They planted in you the idea that poverty is synonymous with spirituality. And you believed it. Believed that living tired, without hope, was my will. But that's not faith, Helena. That's control. At that moment I broke down. But it wasn't anger. It was as if finally someone told me that I wasn't guilty. That the mistake wasn't in me. That my sincere heart was manipulated. And I cried. I cried like a child. Then he showed me images, churches. Some I even recognized. People praying, fasting, crying at the altar. But among them, I saw dark figures moving in the middle of the services. And Jesus told me, there are places where they use my name, but where I am not. Because those who lead there don't seek me. They only mention me. Many, Helena, are serving another Lord, even with the Bible in hand. That broke me inside. It hurt. Because I always suspected, always felt something was wrong in certain places. But I kept quiet. I was afraid to question, thinking that was rebellion. But at that moment, I understood. Discernment is not rebellion. It's protection. Then Jesus looked at me with that look that mixes love and truth, and said something that shattered me inside. Did you know that while many of my children are blaming themselves for not having money, those who manipulate their faith live like kings? At that moment, my heart sank, because I knew it was true. I had seen it up close, but every time something bothered me, I swallowed hard. I thought criticizing was a sin. They ride in armored cars, travel by private jet, stay in 5-star hotels, and still have the courage to tell you to wait for God's time. Oh, he said. But their time has already come. And continues. That hit me hard. How many times I myself heard that my blessing was delayed, that I needed to prove my faith a little more. While the leaders lived like celebrities. They say, prosperity is the devil's thing. Jesus continued, but live as if they own the world. And my people continue serving, believing, giving themselves, and dying inside. When he said that, he paused, looked me in the eyes as if he wanted me to never forget. Helena, I came to set free, not to imprison. And if the gospel you heard your whole life enslaves you, tires you, makes you sick, then it's not me they are preaching. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. Before continuing, just one request. Subscribe to the channel. This helps us a lot to continue. To our yuan and your few shown and credit and style, which so will review our nessa. At that moment, everything became clearer. It wasn't just about money. It was about purpose, about identity. Jesus went deeper. Helena, the enemy doesn't just want to keep my people poor. He wants to make them blind. Because blind people don't question. They don't dream. They don't break free. And then he even uses good things, like compassion, to deceive. I remained silent. And that's when he showed me something that tore my heart apart. I saw projects that seemed beautiful on the outside. Orphanages, missions, shelters. But behind many of them, there was manipulation. Leaders who used the pain of the little ones as a facade. While the orphans slept on old mattresses, they slept in resorts. While the people fasted asking for provision, they held secret meetings with politicians and businessmen. Jesus said, "Many use suffering as a showcase. They turn pain into currency." And I cried, but it wasn't anger. It was sadness. Because I had already helped. I had already contributed, thinking I was cooperating with the kingdom. But now I saw that many times I only fed a distorted system. And then he touched on a point that dismantled me. "Do you remember when you thought about giving up everything to live from the ministry, Helena? I saw your heart. It was pure, but you were pushed, always stopping without direction. And if I hadn't stopped you, you would have entered a path where need becomes commerce and faith becomes a product." At the time, I realized it was true. Several times I thought about living by faith, but something always held me back. Now I knew what it was. It was Jesus protecting me from myself. He looked at me tenderly like a father speaking to his daughter and said, "What starts with passion without foundation ends in despair. And despair corrupts. The enemy knows this. That's why he rushes the sincere, so that they swim. He becomes like the false ones. But I called you to another path, Helena. A path of light, truth, and freedom." It was then that he put his hand on my shoulder, calmly, with affection, and said, "Daughter, now I will show you what many never see, but which explains why so many lie tired, even within the church." His voice was full of compassion. There was no accusation, only love. Like someone who sees a daughter trying to carry a weight that isn't hers. With a gentle gesture, he took me, and suddenly I was in several places at once. As if my soul watched everything from the outside, but with absurd clarity. I was inside various churches. On the outside, everything seemed normal: pulpit, praise playing, preacher shouting, people crying. But inside, it was another scenario. I saw demons sitting on the benches, others walking through the aisles, and even on the altar. It chilled me inside. "They don't enter out of nowhere," Jesus said sadly. "They are invited. When my children trade repentance for spectacle, when they trade truth for emotion, they open the door." That gave me chills to the soul, because I had already felt a strange weight in some services. But I never knew how to explain it. And then he completed, with that gentle firmness that only he has, "Helena, it is not the volume that brings my presence. It is not the choreography, nor the illuminated stage. It is the broken heart. It is the truth being lived, not just spoken." And there everything made sense. I remembered how many times I left the church feeling empty, even after praying, crying, singing. Now I understood why. His presence had not been there for a long time, but no one noticed. Jesus looked at me in that way that only a father looks when he sees the child, finally understanding what he always tried to show with love. And he said, with a calmness that pierced me inside, "Wow, I don't blame you for believing. I saw your sincerity, daughter. But now that you have seen the truth, now you can choose to walk with me in freedom, without fear, without guilt, with open eyes." After everything he showed me, Jesus approached like a father who sits next to his daughter after a deep conversation. He took my hands tenderly and spoke softly. "Helena, you no longer need to live in fear. I have already given you the keys." I looked at him without fully understanding and asked, "What keys, Lord?" He smiled that healing smile and replied, "The keys of freedom, truth, authority. You are no longer a slave. You are my daughter." At that moment, my whole body seemed to tremble, because the penny dropped. The answer I had asked for years in tears and fasting was already with me, but I didn't see it, because they taught me to look far for what was already inside. You fasted to be accepted, prayed to deserve, worked in the church to be noticed, but I already loved you before all that. I just wanted you to sit at my feet like a daughter and listen to me. At that moment, the little pride I had left dissolved. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Then Jesus looked at me again, just as it all began, with love, calm, but now with direction, with purpose. And he said, "Daughter, you can stay here with me. The pain is over, the burden is left behind, but if you want to go back, I will go with you. And this time it will not be to survive, it will be to live." I stayed there in silence because there was peace. It was there. But I thought of my children. I thought of so many other people like me, who were struggling, suffering, trapped in a system that distorts the image of God. With tears in my eyes, I looked at him and said, "Lord, if it's to go back different, if it's to help others see too, then send me back. But only if you go with me." And he smiled. That smile full of certainty, as if he already knew my answer before the question was even asked. "I never left you, Helena. And now you will walk as someone who knows the truth. You will walk as my daughter." At the same time, a light began to envelop me. It wasn't just any light. It was like a hug. Everything was becoming distant, out of focus, until I opened my eyes, and the white ceiling of the hospital seemed to even shine. For a second, I thought I was still there, on the other side. But then I heard a voice, saw my daughter crying softly beside the bed. The doctor was there, with a look of astonishment, as if he had seen a miracle. "She came back," he whispered. And I thought I did come back, but I'm not the same anymore, because something in me had changed. It wasn't just the body that breathed. It was the soul, alive, light, new. In the following days, everything around me seemed the same. The house, the bills, the rush. But I was no longer the same woman. The difficulties continued. But now I knew who I was walking with. And more, I knew who I was. I stopped chasing the blessing and started walking with its owner. I moved away from what held me back, left the structures that only drained me, and went to serve his heart. It was like taking a blindfold off my eyes. For the first time I saw. And if you stayed with me until here, maybe this story is also about you. Maybe you are tired of praying, of fighting, of fasting, and still feel like you are standing in the same place. Maybe, like me, you confused exhaustion with the cross, guilt with obedience, poverty with holiness. And if that's your case, I just want to tell you one thing: Jesus loves you. But he didn't call you to live like this. He doesn't want to see you living in fear of prospering. He didn't create you to walk with your head down, asking for crumbs, thinking that carrying weight is a sign of spirituality. He called you to freedom, to truth, to a life with purpose. It's not about leaving the church, it's about returning to the right place, his feet, the altar of the heart, the real relationship, the true listening. So if something inside you moved today, return to him, not to the system, not to performance, to him. Because it's a performance to him. Was only when I stopped chasing the blessing that I found its owner. And then finally everything started to make sense. What an incredible and transformative story. Helena's courage in sharing this experience invites us to reflect. Are we following the voice of the Spirit, or just human traditions? The Bible reminds us in John chapter 8, verse 32. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Thank you very much, Helena, for opening your heart to us and bringing to light what many still live in the shadows. And to you who watched until here, may the blessings of heaven be upon your life. See you in the next video.